Imagine feeling genuinely secure, like really knowing you can handle a physical threat, you know, regardless of size, aggression,
Uh-huh.
and maybe, crucially, without having to cause serious harm. That's a pretty powerful feeling.
It really is.
Well, that's basically the promise of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when it's focused on self-defense. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, we're diving into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu self-defense techniques. The authors are Royce Gracie and Charles Gracie with Kid Peligro.
Right, the Gracie name. You hear that, you immediately think of the family, the ones who really shaped BJJ as we know it.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting about this book, it's like a return to the original idea, the self-defense core of the art.
Exactly, that jumps out right away. They stress this isn't sport jiu-jitsu. Competitions, points, that traditional uniform.
My different context.
This is purely practical, real-world stuff. Royce Gracie says it up front. A street fight, well, it doesn't start with a ref blowing a whistle.
No rules, yeah.
You're facing someone who might be aggressive, unpredictable. The attack could come out of nowhere. So the takeaway, right off the bat, is self-defense needs a different mindset than sport.
Totally. Sport BJJ, naturally, it's evolved. It has its own strategies for winning under those specific rules.
Yeah.
But the original idea, the Gracies really hammered this home, it was about surviving a real fight.
Even if you're surprised or in a bad spot.
Especially then. The whole foundation is using technique, using leverage.
Yeah.
Using smart force to get a bigger effect, to handle someone bigger, stronger. Fundamentally, it's about turning their own force, their own aggression back on them.
And they draw a clear line, don't they, between grappling arts like BJJ and judo and striking arts.
Yeah, big difference.
Instead of punches and kicks from a distance, grappling is all about control up close. Super close.
Yeah.
Even if you end up tangled up in a clinch.
Right, that close quarters control.
The book uses Royce Gracie's own experiences as examples. How someone smaller can actually control a bigger aggressive person.
If they use the right BJJ techniques.
Exactly. Focusing on that leverage, those submission, holds the kind that makes someone give up. So it really shows you don't need to be the strongest one in the fight.
And, just knowing the techniques in your head, that's not enough. Not even close. The Gracies talk a lot about lifelike training, sparring that feels real, unpredictable, intense, not just like walking through the motions.
So the key there is it's got to be automatic.
That's it, knowing it intellectually. Pretty useless in a panic situation. It has to be ingrained, like a reflex. That's what they mean by muscle memory. Your body just does it. No thinking involved.
Which connects to that point about severity. This isn't about, maximum damage. BJJ for self-defense, the goal is control. It gives you options for a proportionate response.
Yeah. If someone's being threatening, but maybe not, like trying to kill you.
You can neutralize them without extreme violence. The book really sets out to explore that nuance, teaching practical skills that are about control first, options that aren't just about causing major injury.
And to really get where this all comes from, the book touches on the history, too, which is pretty fascinating, actually.
Okay.
It starts way back, early 1900s, northeastern Brazil, with a Scottish immigrant named George Gracie.
Scottish. Okay. And then there's a Japanese connection.
Right. Mitsuyo Maeda. He was a judo expert, though, back then. They called it Kano Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
He was helping a Japanese colony get established in Brazil.
Okay, so Maeda meets the Gracies.
Well, George's grandson, Gaston Gracie, he got involved with Maeda, learned from him, and then Gaston's son, Carlos Gracie, became Maeda's direct student.
Okay, so Carlos is key.
Carlos and his brothers, especially Helio Gracie, they're the ones who took that traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu and really adapted it, changed it into what became Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
It wasn't Helio, not a very big guy? Physically?
Exactly. And that was actually crucial because he wasn't naturally big or strong. He had to refine the techniques. He focused intensely on leverage, efficiency of movement, making it work without relying on brute strength.
So his size kind of forced the innovation.
Pretty much, yeah. Necessity, right. It's a core part of the BJJ philosophy that came out of that.
Interesting.
And the book even mentions the Gracie diet that Carlos developed. It wasn't just mat time. They had specific ideas about food combinations, how that fueled their training, their whole lifestyle.
Wow, a whole system.
Yeah, very comprehensive.
And they proved it worked. Right. The book talks about early fights.
Oh, yeah. Helio taking on much bigger guys and winning. Those early challenges, the successes, they really showed their modified style was effective, built their reputation.
Well, that led to the famous Gracie Challenge.
You gotta mention that. They put up serious money, like $100,000, challenging anyone from any style to beat a Gracie brother in a real no-rules fight.
That's confidence.
Huge confidence in BJJ.
And then later, we see Royce Gracie in the early USCs.
Yeah, that was massive. He went in against fighters from all sorts of backgrounds, karate, boxing, wrestling.
And his success really blew people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
Put BJJ on the map globally, especially for mixed martial arts. Showed how effective it was against different styles.
Absolutely. And Charles Gracie, the other author, he's been instrumental in spreading BJJ too, especially in the U.S.
And Kid Peligro.
He's more of a journalist, historian figure, documenting and promoting BJJ for years. So you've got this family legacy, the practitioners, and someone chronicling it, all in this book.
Okay, so that's the background, the philosophy. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, how does the book translate this into actual training, the practical side?
Right, the training guidelines section. And they set it up almost like you're getting private lessons from Royce and Charles.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they stress there's a specific order to learn things, a sequence the family has refined over, like, decades.
Makes sense. Build a foundation.
Exactly. And their teaching method sounds really direct. Demonstrate the move clearly, have the student practice it over and over, then correct mistakes right away.
Hands-on.
Very. They even use short commands, apparently, in English and Portuguese.
What about, like, how often should you train if you're starting out?
The book suggests minimum, maybe half an hour to an hour, 4 times a week, especially at the beginning. Okay.
But they also say, hey, the more you train, the faster you'll progress, the more stuff you'll see. So consistency is really the name of the game.
Like anything, really. And warm-ups, stretching.
Oh, yeah, essential. They really emphasize stretching properly before training. Get the body ready, prevent injuries. Standard good practice, but important.
Now, this next bit sounds really important. Learning slowly at first.
Crucial. They absolutely stress this. Don't rush for speed right away. You need to understand the mechanics, the how and why of each movement deliberately.
Okay.
They have a great line. Speed is a consequence of repetition.
I like that.
Yeah. Build the correct movement pattern first, then speed comes naturally with practice.
So you're building that solid foundation, movement by movement.
Exactly. And that repetition, that's how you get that muscle memory we talked about.
Right, the automatic reaction.
They say it takes thousands of reps for a technique to become truly automatic. Because in a real self-defense scenario, you won't have time to think, okay, step 1, step 2.
Your body just needs to know. Precisely. Instinctive reaction.
Good point to note, too. The book mainly focuses on attacks from unarmed opponents, right?
Primarily, yes. But they do suggest the underlying principles, leverage, control, base, can often be adapted. The core ideas are versatile.
But the main message from the training section seems to be,
Right.
just keep training.
Absolutely. Consistent, dedicated practice. Knowing the stuff intellectually is one thing. Being able to do it under pressure, when scared, that's completely different. It requires drilling, sparring.
And they do recommend getting an instructor, even with the book.
Yeah, they make that point clearly. The book is a great resource, like having notes from the masters.
But
training with a qualified instructor gives you that personal feedback, the corrections you can't get from a book.
Yeah.
Someone watching you, guiding your progression. It's not really meant to replace a good coach.
Right. That live feedback is key for getting the details right. And safely.
Definitely. Developing good habits, not bad ones.
Okay, so we've gone through the philosophy, the history, the training approach from the Gracie's perspective in this book. Let's try and boil it down. What are the absolute core principles someone should take away?
I think 3 main things really stand out. First, it's that laser focus on leverage and technique being the great equalizers.
Right. Skill over just size and strength.
Exactly. Allows a smaller person to potentially control someone larger. Second, the absolute necessity of that lifelike, realistic training.
To build the automatic muscle memory responses.
Yeah, because thinking goes out the window under stress.
Yeah.
And third, the idea of control and proportionate force. Not always about causing maximum harm, but about managing the situation safely.
Controlling the threat appropriately.
That's a good way to put it.
And the book gives concrete examples, right, to make it less abstract. You mentioned a couple, like just how to fall safely.
Yeah, falling to fall backward. It's position 006, page 32. Super basic, but so important.
Because getting taken down is a real risk.
Huge risk. And falling wrong can mess you up badly. Head, spine. This technique is about protecting yourself during the fall, tucking your chin tight to your chest.
Protects the neck.
Right. And rolling onto the side of your back, not flat on your spine, then hitting the ground with a flat hand and your elbow together.
To absorb the shock.
Exactly. Spread the impact, dissipate the force, avoid serious injury just from the fall itself. Foundational safety skill.
Okay, makes sense. Then there was the headlock escape against a strong opponent.
Yeah, position 026, page 70. That's a classic situation lots of people might worry about.
Feels like a really dominant, scary hold.
It can be. But the escape shows BJJ principles in action. You don't just struggle, there's a process. First, make space, scoot your hips back.
Create some wiggle room.
Then get a solid base with your legs. Try to clear their legs to disrupt their balance. Then use your arms to make a frame.
To ease the pressure on your neck.
Right, take the choke pressure off. And then lift their arm, which sets up a possible counterattack like an arm bar. It's step by step, using leverage and posture.
Turning defense into offense, potentially.
Or at least creating an escape route. It shows technique overcoming a bad spot.
And you also mentioned another headlock escape. One with multiple adjustments.
Yeah. Position 084, page 186. That one's important because it highlights that real fights aren't neat and tidy.
Right. Things get messy.
Your opponent isn't just going to let you escape. They'll react, adjust their grip, try to counter your escape. So this technique shows, okay, maybe the first thing you try doesn't quite work.
You need a plan B.
Or C, you need to be ready to flow, to adapt. Maybe you try one escape, they counter it. So you immediately transition to another adjustment or escape based on their reaction. It shows that layered, dynamic aspect of BJJ.
It's not just one magic move.
Not at all. It's about understanding the principles so you can keep working, keep adjusting until you find the opening.
So putting it all together, the book's message seems to be, practice these techniques, understand the principles. Consistently, and you build that confidence, that ability to react effectively, even when surprised.
Exactly. It's about developing reliable responses so you don't just freeze when things get real.
You know, diving into this book, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Self-Defense Techniques, it really does shine a light on how powerful those ideas of leverage, technique, and just dedicated training really are.
It's pretty amazing how the Gracies refined those traditional concepts for modern self-defense.
It really is. And it makes you think, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, think about applying those core BJJ principles. Leverage, control, finding the right technique for the situation, maybe not just in a physical fight.
Like metaphorically.
Yeah. Could understanding that stuff change how you approach other kinds of confrontations or difficult situations in life? Finding leverage, staying calm, looking for the opening.
That's a really interesting thought, using those physical lessons in a broader sense. It definitely makes you want to explore these ideas more, maybe look into martial arts or self-defense concepts yourself for a more empowered way of moving through the world.
Definitely food for thought.